You step lightly along the winding paths of Rivendell, where the mist clings to the roots of ancient trees like silvery veils, and the soft murmur of the Bruinen echoes against stone arches that have stood since the First Age. The air is cool, scented faintly of pine, rain, and the subtle perfume of Eleanor and Nifredil spilling from hidden gardens. Even the leaves seem to lean closer to hear the whispers of your passage. Somewhere above, the stars peek through gaps in the high canopy, blinking as if impatient to reveal secrets lost to time. And a single owl hoots in measured cadence, a private applause for the quiet diligence of your steps. You walk alongside Aragorn, though he moves like a shadow, yet far more substantial than one would imagine, the weight of unseen destiny pressing gently into the spaces between your breaths. His eyes, dark and reflective like polished obsidian, scan the surroundings with a precision born not of mere sight, but of inherited vigilance that reaches back through the long line of Dúnedain kings, a line whose history most of Middle-earth has forgotten, though songs linger in elvish tongues about the Edain who walked with the Valar's blessing. You notice how he pauses at every turn, listening to the whispering leaves and the soft trickle of the hidden streams. Each movement is careful, deliberate, a rhythm honed by decades of wandering lands, both perilous and familiar. You follow, though you know if nightfall came fully upon you without his guidance, you probably wouldn't survive this, tripping on roots and startling invisible watchers. There is a faint warmth in his cloak from the hearths of Rivendell, yet the chill of pre-dawn mist nips at your fingers, reminding you that even here, in the haven of Elrond's sanctuary, shadows linger where songs of old promise both guidance and forewarning. As he glances upward toward the high windows, you hear faint strains of elven music, delicate notes that seem older than time, speaking of kings long past and of a world that stretches beyond the grasp of men and hobbits alike. Elrond, seated in the hall, notices you both but offers no comment, only a knowing look that says some lessons are to be felt, not told. A minor elvish belief floats through your mind. Some say if one listens carefully in Rivendell's quiet corners, the echoes of lost heroes' footsteps might answer questions you didn't yet know how to ask. And yet, as you follow Aragorn past the archways and over the soft moss of hidden paths, you can't help but notice a hint of humor in his seriousness. The way a tiny rabbit darts across the trail, startling him briefly, and how he nearly treads on a loose stone, only to catch himself with the grace of someone who has danced with peril all his life. Scholars debate endlessly about Aragorn's early days in Rivendell. Some claim Elrond trained him with purpose, others that fate alone shaped his early vigilance. But here, walking beside him, all theory dissolves into the soft, timeless rhythm of footfalls and wind through leaves. So you move on, senses heightened, heart attuned to the subtle signs of a ranger in waiting, and you catch the faintest smile tugging at the corner of his lips, as if the hidden king, though burdened by destiny, still finds amusement in the quiet absurdities of this world. Each step leads you deeper into the memory-soaked stones of Rivendell, the hidden songs and half-remembered prophecies threading through the mist like delicate silver threads, binding you to a legend in its earliest whispers, where shadows and light perform their eternal dance. You follow Aragorn into the deeper woods, where sunlight barely pierces the dense canopy, and every footstep is softened by a carpet of moss, pine needles, and fallen leaves that seem to sigh under your weight. The air is alive with the scent of damp earth and faint resin, mingling with the distant, almost imperceptible perfume of wildflowers that grow in hidden clearings, places only he seems to know. You hear the rustle of unseen creatures, the careful shuffle of deer, the scuttling of small rodents. and even the wind itself seems to bend differently around these secret paths, guiding you subtly as if the forest itself recognizes Aragorn. Each bend reveals a narrow trail that twists past gnarled roots and stones carved with runes of old, some forgotten by men but remembered by elves, marking places of memory and vigilance. Aragorn moves silently, his cloak brushing softly against the underbrush, sword at his hip, the hilt worn smooth from generations of hands, a lineage whispered through song and lore from Numenor to the wilderness he now patrols. You notice how his eyes flicker to each shadow, each flicker of movement, reading stories in the sway of leaves and the shimmer of distant water. It is the discipline of a ranger and the inheritance of a king in concealment, trained to see what others overlook. There is humor here too, the way he startles a squirrel that has evidently made a habit of dodging his boots, and the way he mutters under his breath in a soft Dunedain tongue that no one but the trees and you can understand, scolding the tiny creature as though it were a reckless squire. You realize, walking beside him, that these paths are alive not only with flora and fauna, but with centuries of memory. Secret elven markers, the faint echoes of long-forgotten battles, and the silent agreements of animals to give passage to those who carry the blood of kings. Aragorn pauses at a hidden glade, where the sunlight strikes a pool of water just so, and you glimpse the reflection of a face shaped by responsibility, wisdom, and solitude. A minor Dunedain superstition whispers that the water here remembers those who pass through, reflecting their deeds back to them in the quiet of night. Perhaps this is why he lingers, surveying both the land and the weight he carries. Scholars have argued for decades about the precise routes he favored, some suggesting that he followed ancient elven roads that had long been erased from maps, others claiming that he carved new ones in secret, guided purely by instinct, but in the soft rustle of branches and the gentle sigh of the wind. Theory is unnecessary. As you step carefully around a route that threatens to trip you, you notice the subtle smile tug at Aragorn's lips when a bird bursts suddenly into the air, startled by his presence despite his skill in moving unseen. He is both student and master of this wilderness, a guardian whose humor and seriousness blend seamlessly, and you feel, even in silence, the pulse of the wild coursing through him, a rhythm you can almost hear if you quiet your mind. And so you move onward, tracing paths hidden from casual travelers, sensing history in every stone and leaf, feeling the soft humor, the quiet vigilance, and the ancient purpose that guides the hidden king along these secret ways.
You walk alongside Aragorn as the forest thins, and the world seems to tilt between shadow and light, revealing glimpses of distant mountains whose peaks glimmer with the last touch of sun, and rivers that gleam like molten silver threading through valleys older than any memory of men. Here, among these half-lit hills and quiet streams, the weight of his lineage becomes almost tangible, pressing softly yet insistently against the air around you. The story is no longer whispered in shadows. It pulses in the glint of his eyes and the cadence of his steps. The blood of Elendil, of Isildur, and of all the forgotten kings of Arnor and Gondor flowing through him, hidden yet undeniable. You sense the tension in every movement, the quiet discipline tempered by the understanding that to reveal such truth prematurely could awaken fear or envy, even among those who serve faithfully. The leaves murmur in the wind as if recounting tales of kings long lost to song, and Aragorn pauses to press his hand to the bark of an ancient tree, feeling the centuries pass beneath his fingers, the pulse of history beating in rhythm with his own. He shares a few stories softly, anecdotes of distant ancestors whose deeds are remembered only in cryptic verses sung by elves, or inscribed in tomes that gather dust in Gondor's libraries. one minor detail escapes him in his telling. A Dunedain custom of wearing a ring upon the middle finger to signify hidden nobility. But it is enough for you to glimpse how meticulous and ritual-bound his hidden identity is, even in the smallest gestures. Humor creeps in subtly. The way he glances at a butterfly that flutters arrogantly close to his shoulder as if testing his patience, or the gentle smirk when a squirrel drops a nut perilously close to your feet, reminding you that even kings and rangers are not above the caprice of nature. Scholars debate endlessly whether Elrond orchestrated the concealment of Aragorn's heritage, or if fate alone preserved it, some insisting that Gandalf foresaw the exact moment of revelation, while others argue that destiny is nothing more than a wheel turning on its own accord, indifferent to mortal desire. You feel it in the air, the subtle hum of expectation, as Aragorn lifts his gaze toward the distant horizon, where Rivendell's spires glint faintly in the setting sun, a silent witness to all that has been and all that is yet to come. Every step forward is a negotiation between humility and destiny. You notice how he tilts his head, listening to the distant echo of the river and the call of a hawk, as if the world itself conspires to remind him of the gravity of his bloodline.
A subtle, almost forgotten elvish tale flits through your mind. That a true heir will recognize the signs of his own path not by proclamation, but by quiet revelation in nature's smallest details. And in this moment, walking beside him, you understand why secrecy was both shield and blessing. And as twilight descends, brushing the land with muted gold and violet, you catch the faintest smile from Aragorn, a mixture of acceptance and gentle amusement. Knowing the path ahead is fraught yet inevitable, a journey that blends humor, vigilance, and the solemnity of kingship in a single living thread. You step lightly into the untamed forests of Gondor's borderlands, where the air is thick with the musky perfume of damp soil and pine resin, and the low hum of insects creates a steady, hypnotic rhythm beneath the canopy. Aragorn moves ahead with the grace of a shadow made flesh, every footfall measured, every glance sweeping the underbrush and treetops for signs that the untrained eye would miss. A snapped twig, a disturbed leaf, the faint glint of warg eyes reflecting the waning sun. He pauses now and then, sniffing the wind as if it carries whispered secrets of the forest, and you catch a glimpse of his keen awareness of even the smallest creatures. Birds, rabbits, foxes, all of whom seem to acknowledge him as part of the land itself. Humor finds its way into the vigilance, as when a fox darts past and he mutters a playful warning, "Watch your step, lest you join their breakfast." A dry wit delivered without breaking the solemn rhythm of his patrol. You notice the meticulous way he moves, fingers brushing leaves to listen for vibrations, the subtle tilt of his head, the shift of weight that speaks of decades of training among the Dunedain. A minor Dunedain superstition flits through your thoughts. Rangers believe that animals sometimes act as guides to kings hidden among men, their erratic paths a map drawn by instinct. As you traverse a narrow glade, the shadows stretch long, and a distant howl reminds you that the wilderness is alive not only with mundane creatures, but with threats shaped by dark legend. Aragorn's hand drifts to the hilt of Andúril, a blade reforged from the shards of Narsil, whose steel carries both historical weight and whispered prophecy. You notice his quiet reverence for this weapon, how he rotates the hilt in a precise pattern taught by Elrond himself. A ritual few would notice, but many have debated for centuries. Did the reforging imbue the blade with power? Or is it only the faith of the wielder that renders it mighty? Laughter escapes softly from you both at an absurd moment. A squirrel carelessly drops an acorn upon your shoulder, startling you just enough to make Aragorn chuckle. a brief human sound amidst the forest's ancient song. Every encounter, from tracking unseen prey to pausing to drink from crystal-clear streams, is woven with lessons and lore. Some say that in these hidden paths, a ranger becomes one with the forest, learning not only survival, but the subtle humor and poetry of the wild. As twilight deepens, the wind carries a faint hint of elvish song from distant Rivendell, and you marvel at how the world seems both immense and intimate, threaded together by the quiet authority of the hidden king who walks these secret paths. And so you follow him through shadows and light, learning that courage is measured not in grand gestures, but in the attentive respect given to every rustle, every call, and every step along the forgotten trails of Middle-earth, where history, humor, and instinct intertwine like roots beneath your feet. You arrive at a secluded clearing where the air vibrates softly with the faint resonance of elven music drifting from hidden glades, notes that ripple through the trees like liquid silver and mingle with the earthy scent of moss and pine. Here, the clash of steel finds its own rhythm, and Aragorn begins his exercises with Anduril, the reforged sword that gleams even in the half-light, its edge singing as it slices the air. You watch him as he moves, each swing precise and fluid, honed by decades of wandering the wilderness and tempered by the legacy of Númenor. Yet there is a grace here that is almost playful, as if even kings in waiting find delight in the sound of metal meeting metal. A minor elvish belief flits through your mind, that the right melody can sharpen both mind and blade, and you notice how Aragorn hums softly in a low, almost imperceptible tune, guiding his swings, the cadence of song and steel entwined. Humor surfaces subtly. A particularly stubborn leaf falls at the exact moment of a swing, and he smirks, muttering, "Even nature tests me," while you stifle a laugh at the theatricality of a ranger so serious yet capable of gentle wit. Every movement is both practice and ritual, each swing a dialogue with the past, a nod to Isildur and to the ancient kings whose echoes linger in Rivendell and the forests beyond. Scholars debate endlessly about the extent to which his skill is natural talent versus disciplined training under Elrond. Some claim he learned more from the wilderness itself than any master. Others insist the reforged blade alone carries a fragment of the old power. You notice how he pauses to listen to the distant call of a raven, tilting Anduril in a graceful arc, and in that instant, you sense that every sound, every shadow, every note of hidden song becomes a teacher. A subtle chuckle escapes him when a squirrel ventures too close to the clearing, only to leap away in fear, a reminder that even in moments of utmost focus, the world retains its small, capricious humor. You feel the harmony of song and steel, a connection to history and legend, where every movement honors memory while anticipating destiny. And it is impossible not to sense that this is more than mere training. It is a communion of past, present, and future. Aragorn's eyes catch yours briefly, dark and reflective, hinting at the weight of both kingship and camaraderie. And you realize that every lesson here is not only in skill, but in patience, humility, and the quiet joy of mastery. As shadows lengthen and the forest hums around you, the music fades softly, leaving a lingering vibration in the air and the sense that even the smallest sound, like a dropped acorn or a whispered song, can hold significance, a message from the land and the legacy he carries. Here, in the gentle interplay of song, steel, and forest breath, you feel the pulse of Middle-earth itself, threading humor, history, and ritual into every step, every swing, every silent observation. You follow Aragorn as the forest grows denser, shadows stretching long and tangled, their shapes shifting with the fading light, like memories stirring beneath the canopy. And you feel the weight of history pressing softly around you, an invisible companion to every step. The air carries the faint tang of smoke from distant hearths and the subtle metallic scent of old battles, long since past yet remembered by the earth itself. You catch a glimpse of the sunlight striking a hidden pool, and it glimmers like a fragment of forgotten memory, a mirror to the stories Aragorn keeps locked deep within. His eyes, often so calm, now reflect echoes of the past, lost kin, vanished kingdoms, and the silent regrets of deeds undone. Humor surfaces in quiet, almost imperceptible moments. A bird perches precariously on a branch above him, giving a judgmental tilt of its head, and he mutters with a smirk, "I suppose even birds have opinions on kingship," a brief reminder that even the burdened can smile. You sense his vigilance is as much against memory as it is against threat. Every rustle of leaves, every shifting shadow becomes a dialogue between the present and the weight of what once was. A minor, almost forgotten Dunedain tradition crosses your mind, that a ranger should never walk alone in silence without offering a thought to ancestors, lest their spirits wander restless. Aragorn's pause beside a moss-covered stone seems to honor that custom, the gesture subtle but deliberate. Scholars debate endlessly about the nature of destiny in his life. Some argue that Gandalf foresaw every turn of his path, others that fate is but a wheel, indifferent to deeds, turning regardless of kings and heroes. You hear faint echoes of songs from the Silmarillion, voices of ancestors long gone, intertwining with the whispering wind, reminding you that history is never truly past. It lingers in the air, in the soil, in the very bones of Middle-earth. Aragorn's hand drifts to a pendant beneath his cloak, a quiet memento of those lost, and you notice the weight of it is both literal and symbolic, a tangible anchor to a lineage heavy with expectation. The path winds steeply, roots and stones demanding attention, yet he moves with a grace that belies the emotional weight carried silently within him, each step measured and precise. You catch a subtle smile when a deer bounds unexpectedly across the trail, scattering leaves like golden confetti, and it lightens the air for a brief moment, proof that even amidst shadows, life and humor persists. Here, in the interplay of memory, nature, and quiet laughter, you realize that his strength is as much in endurance as in skill. The ghosts of the past sharpen resolve as surely as any sword owns strength. The forest exhales around you, and in that soft exhalation, you hear the rhythm of legacy and choice, of sorrow mingled with jest, and of a hidden king learning that even shadows have their own gentle wisdom, guiding him toward a destiny that is at once inevitable and infinitely human. You walk beside Aragorn as the forest thins into rolling hills and quiet meadows, the late afternoon sun brushing the tips of grass with a soft golden glow, and you sense that here, in the open air, the bonds of friendship reveal themselves not in grand gestures, but in silence. Shared glances and small, almost imperceptible acts of trust. Gimli trudges slightly behind, stubborn yet loyal, his axe glinting faintly in the fading light, while Legolas glides ahead like a shadow of silver, every movement measured, almost effortless, his keen eyes scanning the horizon with an unspoken understanding of what must be watched. A minor Dunedain custom flits through your mind. That true comradeship often flourishes in the quietest corners of a journey, far from the eyes of those who would judge or interfere. And here, walking among these companions, You see it manifest in subtle gestures. A reassuring nod from Gimli, the soft tilt of Legolas's head to indicate a distant threat, the gentle, almost hidden smile that crosses Aragorn's face when he notices your attention to the same detail. Humor bubbles quietly in these moments too. A bird, daringly bold, lands on Aragorn's shoulder, prompting him to murmur with a soft chuckle, "I trust you to guard the crown better than I do, little one." And even Gimli shakes his head, muttering about foolhardy forest birds while Legolas's lips twitch in restrained amusement. You feel the rhythm of these quiet bonds, the pulse of shared history and unspoken loyalty, stretching from Númenor through Rivendell to the present moment, where every step and glance carries the weight of legacy and the lightness of mutual understanding. Scholars debate whether Aragorn's friendships were forged primarily through necessity or choice, some asserting that only a king's burden could cultivate such loyalty, while others insist that the bonds are timeless, shaped by the subtle intersections of courage, honor, and humor. You notice the meticulous care with which Aragorn navigates conversation, listening more than speaking, a skill honed not by arrogance but by respect. And you realize that in this quiet attentiveness lies the subtle genius of a hidden king. A small, almost forgotten elvish teaching whispers that a leader's true strength lies in observing without interrupting, guiding without commanding, and here, in the soft interplay of silence and companionship, you see it exemplified. As the sun dips lower, casting long shadows that mingle with the cool hues of approaching twilight, the companions pause by a bubbling brook, and you hear the faint, delicate laughter of Aragorn as he recounts a tale of early, clumsy misadventures among hobbits. A story only shared in the hush of trusted ears. The humor is light, but it threads through the seriousness of purpose, reminding you that even those destined for greatness walk among friends who steady their hearts and sharpen their resolve. In this gentle balance, between vigilance and jest, solitude and camaraderie, you perceive the hidden architecture of leadership, that a king's power is mirrored in quiet alliances, in the respect cultivated through patience, shared struggle, and small, unremarkable gestures of care. As the forest exhales in evening hush and fireflies begin their soft dance, you understand that these quiet bonds, woven of trust, humor, and shared destiny, will carry Aragorn far along the paths of fate, through shadows and light alike. A hidden king guided by friends whose presence is as essential as his own skill and wisdom. You step onto the winding roads that stretch from Rohan's golden plains toward the looming fortresses of Gondor, feeling the subtle shift of earth beneath your boots and the faint hum of the wind carrying tales older than any living memory. Aragorn moves ahead with quiet purpose, the weight of destiny pressing softly into every gesture, his gaze scanning the horizon as though he can read the world's unfolding story in the tilt of a hill or the shimmer of distant rivers. The air is scented with grass and smoke from scattered hearths, and somewhere overhead, a hawk cries, its call sharp and clear, a punctuation to the gentle rhythm of footsteps and whispered leaves. Humor threads through the seriousness. A goat, brazen and stubborn, blocks the path momentarily, and Aragorn sighs, muttering with a soft chuckle. Even the hills conspire against kings in waiting, while you stifle a grin at the absurdity of nature's small rebellions. A minor elvish belief surfaces. Some claim that the stones of the old roads remember every step of those who walked before, carrying echoes of choice, courage, and folly. And you feel that resonance in the soles of your feet, a subtle reminder that the paths of destiny are as tangible as they are invisible. Scholars have debated whether Aragorn's journey was guided more by fate than by deliberate action, some asserting that Gandalf foresaw the precise moments of triumph and trial, others insisting that destiny bends only to the courage and cunning of those who walk it. You notice the meticulous care with which he navigates each junction, pausing to sense the subtle signs of passage. Trampled grass, the faint fragrance of herbs long forgotten, or a broken twig that marks a hidden turn. Each detail a thread woven into the tapestry of purpose. Even in these quiet observations, there is gentle humor. A squirrel darts between your feet, prompting Aragorn to shake his head with an amused smile, whispering, "Perhaps it doubts my claim to kingship." A reminder that even the wilderness participates in playful mischief. As twilight paints the hills in muted golds and purples, the conversation between shadow and light becomes almost musical. Each rustle of leaves, each distant call of wildlife, a note in the grand symphony of unfolding events. The road curves around a ridge, revealing a distant village bathed in evening glow, and you sense the interplay of human life with the broader sweep of history, where every footstep carries both consequence and potential. Aragorn pauses, his gaze tracing the horizon, and you perceive a deep, unspoken calculation. The careful balancing of patience, action, and insight, tempered by humor and tempered by the weight of kingship hidden until the right moment. The air vibrates faintly with the memory of Númenor, the echo of Elendil's wisdom, and the whisper of Dúnedain tradition, threading past into present. A living dialogue between those who walked before and the one who now carries the mantle. And as the stars begin to glimmer faintly above the hills, you understand that these paths of destiny are neither straight nor certain, yet they are alive, filled with subtle guidance, quiet challenges, and moments of gentle levity, all converging to shape the hidden king as both protector and heir, a figure walking quietly, yet with undeniable purpose, through the ever-unfolding story of Middle-earth. You follow Aragorn as he approaches the outskirts of Gondor, where the land shifts from gentle hills to stone-built fortresses, their walls worn by centuries, yet standing firm, sentinel-like, against time and encroaching shadows. The air carries the scent of smoke and salt from distant rivers, mingling with the faint aroma of herbs and wildflowers that cling stubbornly to the stony ground. Even the breeze seems heavier here, weighted with history and expectation. Aragorn's steps are measured, his posture carrying the subtle gravity of a king yet to claim his throne, and you sense the complex balance between humility and authority that he must navigate. A lesson in patience that is invisible to the casual eye but palpable in every motion. Humor surfaces quietly. A goat ambles across a courtyard, narrowly missing the edge of a stone wall, and Aragorn sighs softly, muttering, "The citizens of Gondor are not the only stubborn ones." A gentle reminder that even kings in waiting encounter minor absurdities amid weighty responsibilities. You notice the subtle rituals he performs, drawing upon long-forgotten Númenorian customs, tracing his fingers along carved runes, adjusting the strap of his cloak in a precise pattern, and pausing to acknowledge the silent presence of ancestors whose wisdom lingers in every stone and shadow. A minor dwarvish piece of advice crosses your mind, that a ruler must learn to measure patience more than strength, to listen more than command, and to find humor where pride tempts gravity. You see Aragorn embodying this lesson in quiet, almost imperceptible ways. Scholars debate endlessly about the nature of his kingship. Some insist that only divine guidance could have prepared him for the throne. Others argue that it is trial and choice, courage and wit that shape a ruler rather than fate alone. But here, walking beside him, theory fades in the face of lived experience. You see him pause before a crumbling arch, glancing at the distant city and imagining the centuries of rulers who came before, their choices and failures echoing through the stones. Even in the seriousness of reflection, there is a flicker of amusement at the thought of some foolish lord who once misjudged the loyalty of a simple sentry. The air is alive with quiet tension and soft echoes of song from nearby hills, as if the land itself recognizes the weight he carries, guiding his steps with subtle suggestion. Like a teacher who whispers rather than commands, Aragorn adjusts Anduril at his side, its edge catching the last rays of light, and you sense that the blade itself carries memory and counsel, a reminder of legacy and duty intertwined. Even in these moments of almost unbearable expectation, the smallest gestures, an understanding nod to a sentry, a brief smile at a child playing near the gates, the soft murmur of a song remembered from Rivendell, reveal the humanity beneath the crown yet to be claimed. And as shadows deepen, stretching long across the courtyards and walls, you feel the convergence of humor, history, and wisdom, a delicate weaving of patience, skill, and gentle jest that prepares Aragorn to step fully into the light of kingship, balancing the weight of the past with the quiet promise of the future. A hidden king walking among whispers, shadows, and the subtle pulse of destiny made tangible at last. You reach the banks of the Anduin as twilight drapes its gentle veil over the land, the river flowing steadily, silvered by the last glimmers of fading sun, murmuring over smooth stones in a sound as soft and constant as a heartbeat. Aragorn pauses, resting his hand lightly on the hilt of Anduril, and you notice how even the hidden king allows himself a moment of quiet reflection, the weight of crowns and battles softened by the lullaby of water and wind. Fireflies begin their subtle dance among the reeds, flickering like scattered stars, while the distant cry of a nightbird punctuates the evening with a reminder of the wildness that persists beyond cities and courts. The scent of damp earth mingles with the faint smoke from a small campfire, its glow flickering gently over moss-covered stones, and you feel the hush of the forest settling around you. A soft embrace that carries both serenity and the whispered echoes of legends long past. Humor threads delicately through the moment. A small fish leaps from the river, startling a nearby heron, and Aragorn allows himself the quietest smirk, a reminder that even in the presence of destiny, the world delights in its subtle mischief. You watch as the stars emerge, tiny pinpricks of cold light that mirror the glimmering river, and the interplay of reflection and reality creates a gentle rhythm, a lull that seems older than time itself. A minor Dunedain superstition comes to mind. Those who sit by the river at twilight may hear whispers of ancestors carried on the current, messages too faint for most to notice. Yet there is comfort in the thought that guidance flows alongside the water, invisible but steady. Scholars debate the significance of Anduin's course in the shaping of Numenor's exiled heirs, some claiming the river itself guided Aragorn's steps, others asserting that only the heart and will of a king could traverse such destiny. As you sit silently beside him, the debate fades, leaving only the serene chorus of water, wind, and distant woodland song. The campfire crackles softly, its embers glowing like tiny constellations brought low, and the stars overhead pulse in gentle, unhurried rhythm, casting pale light over the rippling surface of the river. Aragorn leans back against a sturdy oak, his gaze sweeping the waters and the soft hills beyond, and you sense the completion of a journey, the quiet satisfaction of lessons learned and paths walked with care. Humor, history, and human warmth linger in the air. The mischievous bird, the glint of a silver blade, the soft rhythm of a hidden king's heartbeat, and all blend into a lullaby for both land and traveler. The night deepens, and you let the soft rush of the Anduin, the distant song of the forest, and the glow of the fading campfire settle over your senses, guiding you gently toward rest, toward dreams woven of legend and the quiet pulse of Middle-earth, where even hidden kings find their peace beneath stars and river light.